Alma. Or the progress of the mind in 3 cantos, Canto to Matthew Prior. But shall we take the muse abroad, to drop her idly on the road, and leave our subject in the middle, as Butler did his bear and fiddle? Yet he, consummate master, knew when to recede and where pursue, his noble negligence teach what others toils despair to reach. He, perfect dancer, climbs the rope, and balances your fear and hope. If, after some distinguished leap, he drops his pole, and seems to slip, straight gathering all his active strength, he rises higher half his length, with wonder you approve his sleight, and owe your pleasure to your fright, but like poor Andrew I advance, false mimic of my master's dance, around the cordle while I sprawl, and thence, though low, in earnest fall. My preface tells you I digressed. He's half absolved who is confessed. I like, quoth Dick, your simile, and in return take 2 from me. As masters in the clair obscure with various lights your eyes allure, a flaming yellow here they spread, draw off in blue, or change in red. Yet from these colors oddly mixed your side upon the whole is fixed, or as, again, your courtly dames whose clothes returning birthday claims by arts improve the stuffs they vary, and things are best as most contrary. The gown with stiff embroidery shining, looks charming with a slighter lining. Look out, if Indian figure stain, the inside must be rich and plain, so you, great authors, have thought fit to make digression temper wit, you calm them with a milder air, to break their points you turn their force, and furbelow the plain discourse. Richard, quoth Matt, these words of thine speak something sly and something fine. But I shall e'en resume my theme, however thou mayest praise or blame. As people marry now and settle, fierce love abates his usual mettle. Worldly desires and household cares disturb the Godhead's soft affairs, so now, as health or temper changes, in larger compass Alma ranges, this day below, the next above, as light or solid whimsies move. So merchant has his house and town, and country seat near Bonstead down. From when he dates his foreign letters, sends out his goods and duns his debtors, in this other, at his hours of leisure, he smokes his pipe, and takes his pleasure. And now your matrimonial Cupid, lashed on by time, grows tired and stupid, for story and experience tell us that man grows cold and woman jealous. Both would they're solid and secure. He sighs for freedom, she for power, his wishes tend abroad to roam, and hers to domineer at home. Thus passion flags by slow degrees, and ruffled more delighted legs, the busy mind does seldom go to those once charming seats below. For well-bred finds and future wars, when he last out him lay dying, was but to gain him to appoint her by codicil a larger jointure. The woman finds it all a trick that he could swoon when she was sick, and knows that in that grief he reckoned one black-eyed Susan for his second. Thus having strove some tedious years with feigned desires and real fears, and tired with answers and replies of John affirms, and Martha lies, leaving this endless altercation, the mind affects a higher station. Poultice, that generous king of Thrace, I think was in this very case. All Asia now was by the ears, and gods beat up for volunteers to Greece and Troy, while Poultice sate in quiet, governing his state. And whence, said the Pacific king, does all this noise and discord spring? Why, Paris took Atrides' wife, with ease I could compose this strife, the injured hero should not lose, nor the young lover warned, a spouse. But Helen changed her first condition without her husband's just permission. What from the dame can Paris hope? She may as well from him elope. Again, how can her old good man with honor take her back again? From hence I logically gather the woman cannot live with either. Now I have 2 right honest wives, for whose possession no man strives, one to Atrides I will send, and t'other to my Trojan friend. Each prince shall thus with honor have what both so warmly seem to crave. The wrath of gods and men shall cease, and Poultice live and die in peace. Dick, if this story pleaseth thee, pray thank Dan Pope, who taught it me. Howe'er swift Alma's flight may vary, take this by way of corollary. Some limbs she finds the very same in place, and dignity, and name. These dwell at such convenient distance, that each may give his friend assistance. Thus he who runs or dances, begs the equal vigor of 2 legs. So much to both does Alma trust she ne'er regards which goes the first. He could make neither of them stay, for whilst one hand exalts the blow, and on the earth extends the foe, this other would take it wondrous ill if in your pocket he lay still. And when you shoot and shut one eye, to lend the other friendly aid, or wink as coward, and afraid. No, sir. Whilst he withdraws his flame, his comrade takes the surer aim. One moment if his beams recede, as soon as ere the bird is dead, opening again, he lays his claim to half the profit, half the fame, and helps to pocket up the game. 'Tis thus one tradesman slips away to give his partner fairer play. Some limbs again, in bulk or stature unlike, and not akin by nature, in concert act, like modern friends, because one serves the other's ends. The arm thus waits upon the heart, so quick to take the bully's part, that one, though warm, decides more slow than this other executes the blow. A stander-by may chance to have it, or hack himself perceives he gave it. The amorous eyes thus always go a-strolling for their friends below. For long before the squire and dame have tete-a-tete relieved their flame, or visits yet are brought about, they eye by sympathy looks out, knows Florino, and longs to meet her, and if he sees is sure to greet her, though at sash window, on the stairs, at court, nay, authors say, at prayers. The funeral of some valiant knight may give this thing its proper light. View his 2 gauntlets. These declare that both his hands were used to war. And from his 2 gilt spurs 'tis learned his feet were equally concerned. But have you not with thought beheld the sword hang dangling o'er his shield? Which shows the breast that plate was used to had an ally right arm to trust to. And by the peepholes in his crest, is it not virtually confessed that there his eye took distant aim, and glances respect to that bright dame, in whose delight his hope was centered, and for whose glove his life he ventured? Objections to my general system may rise, perhaps, and I have missed them. But I can call to my assistance proximity, mark that, and distance. Can prove that all things, on occasion, love union, and desire adhesion. That Alma merely is a scale, and motives, like the weights prevail. If neither side turn down or up, with loss or gain, with fear or hope, the balance always would hang even, like Mahomet's tomb, twixt earth and heaven. This, Richard, is a curious case. Suppose your eyes send equal rays upon 2 distant pots of ale, not knowing which was mild or stale. In this sad state your doubtful choice would never have the casting voice. Which best nor worst you could not think, and die you must for want of drink. Unless some chance inclines your sight, setting one pot in fairer light. Then you prefer or A or B, as lines and angles best agree. Your sense resolve the impulse your will. She guides your hand, so drink your fill. Have you not seen a baker's maid between 2 equal panniers weighed? Her tallies useless lie and idle if placed exactly in the middle. But forced from this inactive state by virtue of some casual weight, on either side you hear them clatter, and judge of right and left hand matter. Now, Richard, this coercive force without your choice must take its course. Great kings to wars are pointed forth like loaded needles to the north, and thou and I, by power unseen, are barely passive and sucked into Hanault's vaults or Celia's chamber, as straw and paper are by amber. If we sit down to play a set, suppose at Imbra or Basset that people call us cheats or fools, our cards and we are equal tools. We sure in vain the cards condemn. Ourselves both cut and shuffled them, in vain on fortune's aid rely. She only is a stander-by. Poor men. Poor papers. We and they do some impulsive force obey, or but played with, do not play. But space and matter we should blame. They palmed the trick that lost the game. Thus to save further contradiction against what you may think but fiction, I for attraction, declare, deny it those bold men that dare. As well your mention as your thought is all by hidden impulse wrought, even saying that you think or walk, how like a country squire you talk. Mark then, where fancy or desire collects the beams of vital fire, into that limb fair Alma slides, and there pro tempore resides. She dwells in the Collini's tongue, when Paris chants the heavenly song. When Pedro does the lute command, she guides the cunning artist's hand. Through Messrs. Gellert she runs down, when the vile glutton dines alone. And, void of modesty and thought, she follows Bebo's endless draught. Through the soft sex again she ranges, as youth, caprice, or fashion, changes, fair Alma, careless and serene, in Fanny's sprightly eyes is seen. While they diffuse their infant beams, themselves not conscious of their flames. Again, fair Alma sits confessed on Florimel's experter breast, when she the rising sigh constrains, and by concealing speaks her pains. In Cynthia's neck fair Alma glows, when the vain thing her jewels shows. When Jenny's stays are newly laced fair Alma plays about her waist. And when the swelling hoop sustains the rich brocade, fair Alma deigns into that lower space to enter, of the large round herself the center. Again, that single limb or feature such as the cogent force of nature which most did Alma's passion move, in the first object of her love, forever will be found confessed, and printed on the amorous breast. O Abelard! Ill-fated youth, thy tale will justify this truth. But well I weet thy cruel wrong adorns a nobler poet's song, Dan Pope, for thy misfortune grieve. With kind concern and skill has weaved a silken web, and ne'er shall fade its colors gently, as he laid the mantle o'er thy sad distress, and Venus shall the texture bless. He o'er the weeping nun has drawn such artful folds of sacred lawn, that love, with equal grief and pride, shall see the crime he strives to hide, and softly drawing back the veil, the god shall to his votaries tell each conscious tear, each blushing grace, that decked dear Eloise's face. Happy the poet, blessed the lays, which Buckingham has deemed to praise. Next, Dick, as youth and habit sways, 100 gambols Alma plays. If, whilst a boy, Jack run from school, fond of his hunting horn and pole, though gout and age his speed detain, old John here lose his hounds again, by his fireside he starts the hare, and turns her in his wicker chair. His feet, however lame, you find, have got the better of his mind. If, while the mind was in her leg, the dance affected nimble Peg, old Madge bewitched, at 61 calls for greensleeves and jumping Joan. In public masque or private ball, from Lincoln's Inn to Goldsmith's Hall, all Christmas long away she trudges, trips it was prentices and judges. In vain her children urge her stay, and age or palsy bar the way, but if those images prevail, which whilom did affect the tale, she still reviews the ancient scene, forgets the 40 years between. Awkwardly gay, and oddly merry, her scarf pale pink, her head not cherry, o'erheated with ideal rage, she cheats her son to wed her page. If Alma, whilst the man was young, slipped up too soon into his tongue, pleased with his own fantastic skill, he lets that weapon ne'er lie still. On any point if you dispute, depend upon it he'll confute, change sides, and you increase your pain, for he'll confute you back again, for one may speak with Tully's tongue, yet all the while be in the wrong. And 'tis remarkable that they talk most who have the least to say. Your dainty speakers have the curse to plead bad causes down to worse. As dames who native beauty want, still uglier look the more they paint. Again, if in the female sex Alma should on this member fix, a cruel and a desperate case, from which heaven shield my lovely lass. Forevermore all care is vain that would bring Alma down again. As in habitual gout or stone, the only thing that can be done is to correct your drink and diet, and keep the inward foe in quiet. So if, for any sins of ours, or our forefathers, higher powers, severe, though just, afflict our life, with that prime ill, a talking wife, till death shall bring the kind relief, we must be patient or be deaf. You know a certain lady, Dick, who saw me when I last was sick. She kindly talked, at least 3 hours, of plastic forms and mental powers, described our pre-existing station, before this vile tearing creation. And, lest I should be wearied, madam, to cut things short, came down to Adam. From whence, as fast as she was able, she drowns the world, and builds up Babel. Through Syria, Persia, Greece, she goes, and takes the Romans in the close. But we'll descant on general nature. This is a system, not a satire. Turn we this globe, and let us see how different nations disagree, in what we wear, or eat, and drink. Nay, Dick, perhaps in what we think. In water as you smell and taste the soils through which it rose and passed, in Alma's manners you may read the place where she was born and bred. One people from their swaddling bands released their infants' feet and hands, Here Alma to these limbs was brought, and Sparta's offspring kicked and fought. Another taught their babes to talk ere they could yet in go-karts walk. Their Alma settled in the tongue, and orators from Athens sprung. Observe but in these neighboring lands the different use of mouth and hands, as men repose their various hopes, in battles these, and those in tropes. In Britain's isles, as Halen notes, the ladies trip in petticoats, which, for the honor of their nation, they quit but on some great occasion, men there in breeches clad you view. They claim that garment as their due. In Turkey the reverse appears. Long coats the haughty husband wears, and greets his wife with angry speeches, if she be seen without her breeches. In our fantastic climes the fair with cleanly powder dry their hair, and round their lovely breast in head fresh flowers their mingled odors shed. Your Nasser Hottentots think meat with guts and tripe to deck their feet. With downcast looks on tortoise legs the ogling youth most humbly begs she would not from his hopes remove at once his breakfast and his love. And if the skittish nymph should fly, he in a double sense must die. We simple toasters take delight to see our women's teeth look white, and every saucy ill-bred fellow sneers at a mouth profoundly yellow in China. None hold women sweet, except their snacks are black as jet. King Che who put 9 queens to death, convict on statute, ivory teeth. At Trinquin, if a prince should die, as Jesuits write, who never lie, the wife, and counselor, and priest, who served him most, and loved him best, prepare and light his funeral fire, and cheerful on the pile expire. In Europe 'twould be hard to find an each degree on half so kind. Now turn we to the farthest east, and there observe the gentry dressed. Prince Jolo and his royal sisters, scarred with 10,000 comely blisters, the marks remaining on the skin, to tell the quality within. Distinguished flashes deck the grade, as each excels in birth or state. His oilet hulls are more and ampler, the king's own body was a sampler. Happy the climate where the beau wears the same suit for use and show, and at a small expense your wife, if once well pinked, is clothed for life. Westward again, the Indian fare is nicely smeared with fat of bear, before you see you smell your toast, and sweetest she who stinks the most. The finest sparks and cleanest bow drip from the shoulders to the toes. How sleek their skins, their joints how easy. Their slovens only are not greasy. I mentioned different ways of breeding. Begin we in our children's reading, to Master John the English maid a Hornbrook gives of gingerbread, and that the child may learn the better, as he can name he eats the letter. Proceeding thus with vast delight, he spells and gnaws from left to right. But show a Hebrew's hopeful son where we suppose the book begun, the child would thank you for your kindness, and read quite backward from our Feeney's. Devour he learning ne'er so fast, greater would be reserved the last. An equal instance of this matter is in the manners of a daughter. In Europe if a harmless maid, by nature and by love betrayed, should her wife become a nurse, her friends would look on her the worse. In China, Dampier's travels tell ye, look in his index for Priscilla. Soon as the British ships and more, and jolly long boats row to shore, down come the nobles of the land, each brings his daughter in his hand, beseeching the mysterious tar to make her but 1 hour his care. The tender mother stands affrighted, lest her dear daughter should be slighted, and poor Miss Yea dreads the shame of going back the maid she came. Observe how custom, Dick, compels the lady that in Europe dwells, after her tea she slips away, and what to do one need not say. Now see how great Pamunk's queen behaved herself amongst the men. Pleased with her punch, the gallant soul first drank, then watered in the bowl, and sprinkled in the captain's face the marks of her peculiar grace. To close this point we need not roam for instances so far from home. What parts gay France from sober Spain? A little rising rocky chain of men born south or north o' the hill, those seldom move, these ne'er stand still. Dick, you love maps, and may perceive Rome not far distant from Geneve. If the good Pope remains at home, he's the first prince in Christendom. Choose then, good Pope, at home to stay, no westward, curious, take thy way, unhappy, shouldest thou take from Tiber's bank to Lemon Lake, thou art an aged priest no more, but a young flaring painted bunny, thy sex is lost, thy town is gone. No longer Rome, but Babylon. That some few leagues should make this change, to men unlearned seems mighty strange. But need we, friend, insist on this? Since, in the very cantons Swiss, all your philosophers agree, and prove it plain, that one may be a heretic or true believer, on this or t'other side the rive. Here, with an artful smile, quoth Dick, your proofs come mighty full and thick. The bard, on this extensive chapter, wound up into poetic rapture, continued, Richard, cast your eye by night upon a winter sky. Cast it by daylight on the strand, which compasses fair Albion's land. If you can count the stars that glow above, or sands that lie below, into these commonplaces look, which from great authors I have took, and count the proofs I have collected, to have my writings well protected. These I'll buy for time of need, and thou mayest at thy leisure read, for standing every critic's rage, I safely will, to future age my system as a gift bequeath, victorious over spite and death.